So do you ever start building in Terraria and then you kind of keep building and build a bit more and then a little bit more and eventually you run out of room and you kind of don't know what to do? Do what I do. Take to the sky. Hey folks, welcome back to another Terraria World Tour video. Now, as you guys know already in this series, what I like to do is go through some of the builds I've made in my world or other people's worlds and just highlight all of the cool features, details, and of course, all of the materials that I use for each build. And today is no exception, except that we're doing something a little bit special. So a while back, I got asked to build for BEAVERRAC. Now, if you don't know who BEAVERRAC is, he's a pretty popular Terraria YouTuber and also a streamer on Twitch. And I recommend you check out his channel on Twitch and of course on YouTube because he has some pretty interesting content. Now, all that being said, I was invited to build on one of his worlds. Now, again, he has a video for this that's going to be coming out. At this stage, it has not been released yet, but by the time this video comes out, it may already be out. But basically, a lot of people were going to be building on a single world. Now, fortunately for me, I did get invited to actually build something in this world, which is really awesome. So I wanted to make something really interesting and very special. Now, as always, guys, I did make this build live on Twitch. It actually took me more than one stream, which is usually not the case. So again, we went pretty heavy on the details, but if you guys are interested in catching me build anything live, you can do so on Twitch every day of the week, except for Wednesdays and Sundays, and the link is down below. Additionally, if you're enjoying any of the content on the channel, guys, feel free to hit the like, the subscribe, or little dinner bell thingy so you can know when the next video hits the old YouTube universe. Now, with that plug out of the way, I'm going to show you exactly how I made the gear islands. Alright folks, so like I said, this is a multi-part build. There are 3 different islands that are going into this, so you'll be able to see a lot of different things, but let's cover all of the materials that we use across all of the builds. So in our right-hand chest, we have all of our blocks. Now to make the islands themselves, guys, we of course use some dirt block, some stone block, and some sandstone block. This is to give it a bit more texture. And then across all of the builds, there are some similar features, but there aren't anything too special about them. We did use some silly pink balloon, some adamantite beam, and some cog. Again, nothing that's too crazy. And you can see we kind of kept the paint pretty generic with some brown, some gray, some black paint, some green paint, and some lime paint. We also went with both of the Dynasty shingles, both the blue and red, and these are going to be painted in lime if I'm not mistaken. So for now, I will encourage you to pause the video here or take a mental image or whatever you got to do to remember all of these materials. If you have any questions or you're not sure about something, guys, feel free to leave a comment down below and I will let you know exactly what it is. So with that done, let's check what's in our left side chest. Again, guys, we have multiple builds, so we do have 2 chests. The left one contains all of our walls, and you'll notice immediately that we're using quite a large variety of walls, and that's because we wanted to have a lot of different textures. Now, I think immediately you're going to see some things I don't typically use very often. That's going to be our purple rain wallpaper, as well as our blue-green wallpaper. Now, you'll see this sprinkled in throughout the build, but those are probably the most unique of the walls that we use throughout the build, and I really do like the way that they turned out among the other things that we did. And again, guys, I encourage you to pause here, just take a snapshot of this so you know what I used. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. All right, so with all our materials reviewed, let's go check out all 3 of these builds. All right, folks, so here we are at the very first and the smallest of the 3 islands. Now, this one, as you can see, has a lot of little features and details. The first and most prominent is going to be this gear. Now, again, this looks really complex and the shape is meant to sort of look gear-like, but this is basically just a lot of combination of copper and tin plating in different arrangements, as well as some cog wall in the background here to give it a bit of movement. And we kind of emptied out these middle pieces to actually make it look like it's moving. Here we just have a steampunk boiler that's in the middle sitting on a steampunk platform, as well as a single piece of gemspark that we've hammered down into the bottom position. I believe this is the diamond gemspark. Now, again, guys, this looks very complex, but the idea was to make this look like this is what was keeping this island up. Now, again, from an ambient perspective, we tried to make these clouds a little bit more interesting, so we just added them in different shapes, and I think this turns out pretty good. We used our hammer a lot, we just poked holes in it, and then we added our cloud wall behind it. So this is very straightforward, but I do like the way it looks, and it seems to add a lot of little features and detail, and it doesn't really take away from the build at all, but just feels like it's in the right spots. Now, the intent of this design here was it's sort of like a little shed where he's growing some pots and plants and that kind of thing. I just like the way it looks. There's nothing too crazy about this. I mean, here we're just using some Dynasty shingles for the roof. This is where we alternated our gemspark walls to make these offline looking windows. Then we tried to add some different features and details and design, and this is where we use some palladium column on the ends that go across, and then that intersects with some wood and some plating. This is painted gray, of course, and all our wood is painted brown. Now, the wood you can mix up however you like. I used some ebon wood, some mahogany. We also used some dynasty. You know, we just really want to mix it up and get a lot of textures. Now, a cool little feature of this build, of course, is the tree with the tire swing. I don't know why I like it so much. Again, this is just some silly pink balloon painted black. It's really easy to make. I just like the way it looks. The tree itself is actually not too bad. It's got a bit more detail than normal. Then we added some gray painted rope with a single block of our plating. This is copper plating. Then we added a lantern for some effect, and this connects into sort of a cog wall bracket. And I just kind of like the way this looks. It gives it a lot of just detail and doesn't really take away from the build. We also then made this little platform on the edge, which you'll see throughout the builds here. This one has a really cool just sort of feature here with the lights hanging off the bottom. Again, this is just plating that we tried to build into the actual island, but we didn't want to make it too big. Now for each island, you'll notice that they use the same sort of material, so I'm not going to highlight the clouds and all that stuff. You want to make the design however you see fit, but the idea is you get inspired to sort of try a different design yourself. So that said, let's move to the second island. All right, folks, so here we are at the second island, and as you can see, it's very similar in a lot of ways. The island design itself is different, but we've kept the gear there that helps everything stay afloat. We added a tree with the roots growing out of the bottom, and we also went with a much different house design. Now, what I really like about this build is that it has a foundation built into the island. It's also a 2-story build with a very interesting roof. Now, this roof, guys, is something that I worked on quite extensively. I probably made this 3 different ways and hated all of them. Landed on this sort of design, which it just kind of different. So what we did here was we used, I believe this is blue or red dynasty wall that we painted lime green, and then we just made some inserts with the opposite dynasty wall, and this kind of shaped it around. And it kind of has a cool kind of pattern where it feels kind of like squashed in and heavy and more tiled, and I do like it. So something I'm going to keep playing with. My roofing game is not that good, but I think it's improving, and I think this is a good sort of show. We then added some wood wall with some plating background here to make it look more bracketed and sturdy, and then some platforms across the top with some adamantite beams digging into the palladium. And again, this is all painted gray. As you can see, we also have some cog on the ends with a little platform kind of holding it up, and we put a little light on each side for some more detail. Moving to this top bedroom, I kind of like the way this looked. This is where we use the blue-green wallpaper, and we painted it gray. I just think it looks really interesting. And then we have some living wood wall going vertically and the windows on each side. And again, guys, the room here is meant to be small, but sort of compact and sort of have everything you need, but nothing too crazy. And you could see that the real design is just kind of a square, a rectangle that we made, and just kind of filled it in with some different details, including sort of more thickened walls here, some wood inserts that are then, of course, bracketed by stone. And this is just some ebon stone, as well as some palladium column in different shapes. And it looks pretty good overall. And moving down to this main floor, I do like some of the details. It's more of a workshop area. So we have a lot of crates and boxes and books. But I really like how this metal kind of breaks through the build and actually connects into the top. This looks like a support beam and some structure, and it kind of fits the build really well and matches it. And this one over here kind of continues throughout and pops out the other side. The other thing I really like about this build is how the wood comes through and sort of looks like big screws that are holding this together, and the way that the palladium column here connects into our wood. Now, another thing that you'll notice here is how we mixed up a lot of the walls, and this is to give it a lot of texture. So like I said, upstairs we have mahogany going across, we have the mahogany going across here and here, and that kind of keeps everything tied together. However, vertically we have, this is going to be some living wood wall, and here we just went with some ebon wood. Here we went with some ebon wood and some normal wood walls. Here we kept it more metallic. And the idea for this, guys, is when you make your builds, keep a few things that are consistent to sort of tie the build together, but don't be afraid to experiment with different kinds of walls and different techniques. As you can see, no room here is the same. They have similar features, but they don't look like they're tied together inherently, other than a few small features. Again, like we have this gray painted palm wood floor and the brown painted mahogany at the top. Beyond that, they're very different, but that adds a lot of detail, texture, and interest to the build, and I highly recommend you try to take an approach like this if you're trying to make something that looks a little bit more, well, punchy. So that pretty much covers it for the second island, guys. If you have any questions about anything in this particular build, do let me know. Just reference that which island you're talking about. Again, the first island was down here. This is island number 2, and now we're gonna go check out island number 3. All right, folks, so here we are at Island 3. This is the most detailed and largest of the builds. Now, if you're wondering what this is, I was trying to go with a sort of wooden mechanical kind of crane that moves side to side. Kind of hard to make it look right, obviously because it's 2D and I didn't really know how to make this, but I really like the way this turned out. So what we did is, of course, we have 2 gears on this island, as you'll sort of notice. The island's a bit wider, but we went with another sort of larger, more intricate house as well to our right. But for now, let's focus on the crane. And as you can see, guys, it's got a lot of details, but really it's just a bunch of mahogany with some different wood going across and hammered into positions. And then in between that, we put some iron brick just to have it there, and yeah, it looks pretty good. For the base, we want to connect this into our, well, plating here and make it look more sturdy and robust. So we just went with a bunch of the adamantite beams. I think it looks pretty good, but honestly, we probably could have changed it with maybe some gray painted fence or something else to give it a little bit more, I guess, movement. But ultimately, I think it was the right choice given what I have been playing around with. Now over here, guys, I know this looks really complex and convoluted, but I promise you it isn't that bad. This is 2 mahogany fences going vertically, and then we just have, again, some mahogany wall going across horizontally. So it gives us this kind of framing. We then added some metal pieces here with the plating again, where we just kind of connected this into a bunch of randomness. Like again, this is like iron that we then put 3 blocks and we hammered 1 down. Just very random, but make it look like it's structurally supported and sound. And we put a fence up to the side. We have a single piece of chain, and then we put a little bit of plating on the back. You know, just a lot of little complexities that look crazy, but it's really not. And you can see that there's a lot of cool little details. So up here we did adamantite beam with a couple pieces of our plating hanging down, a single piece of chain, and then we just kind of sort of hammered them into these sort of diagonal positions as if they're bracketed or held on by these like screws. It looks pretty good. Initially, I wanted to put some walls behind it, but I actually like the way this looks. It lets a little more light through, and I think looks decent. And then we just have a little bit of a platform coming down to give it a bit more shape and connect into the rest of our crane. So as you can see, the rope kind of goes through some mechanical pieces. Again, here we just were a bit lazy and added 1 cog wall. You could do a lot of stuff here, but that was the idea. And that's where this connects into this. Now, this is sort of, I guess, what's actually being moved around throughout the build, or at least that's the idea or the illusion. And this is really simple, just some cog wall with 2 lights on the end. We did a bit of, well, hammering here for our plating, so we used some copper plating. I believe this is tin plating in the middle just to separate it, along with a cog wall in the background for some movement. Now, heading back up to our build, I want to obviously go through a little bit of the details in the house. Again, there's nothing too crazy here, but you can see we've kept a lot of the design elements from the previous 2 islands. So again, we have a gray painted palm wood sort of inset for the floor, and then we went with some spooky wood wall, as well as some brick, or as well as some iron brick, I should say, and some other wall, like wood wall like this, and some ebon wood going vertically. Now, the idea here, guys, is, again, because we want to use similar features in each build to make some cohesion, but to break it up enough, we did our blue-green wallpaper here, painted gray or white, I believe, and just kind of went with something a little bit different. Again, here we went with a really interesting design. We used an extractor as well and put that on a platform, along with some background wall, which is obviously cog wall for movement, and a chain and some other little features. Again, this could be a bit more of a machine-like in some ways, but I think it sort of does the job. We also did not have a lot of room, so you have to keep that in mind with these sort of, well, smaller, more compact areas. Another feature I obviously want to turn to is going to be the roof in its entirety. Now, as you can see, we have a lot of the same details that we pulled from the second build. Now, that's because I really like the way it looks. So of course we kept the cog wall on the side and the little platform for support, but then we went with a mahogany kind of topper going across and then put in some spooky wood in between just for a bit of texture. We then also put in some adamantite beams going vertically, and I do actually like the way these sort of break up the build. They stand out a bit, but it was a really cool sort of just initial design that I liked. And then we put the palladium columns in between, along with some plating on the bottom and some spooky wood inserts. For the actual roof itself, again, you can see we kind of changed it up a bit. We used our honeycomb wall here for the actual roofing tiling background, but then we went with both of our shingles and made some different designs. Now, this roof was something I was just trying out. I don't know if I necessarily love this design. I mean, I do really like the roof that we had on the second island there. It was just more compact and interesting, but I wanted to do something different here. So this one's not too bad. It's something you could do in a pinch or in a hurry. It looks pretty good, but what I do really like about the roof is the way we went with this sort of double insert on the sort of angle here, where you can see that we have sort of this horizontal wall here. So this is our normal wood wall, but then we went on the inside of the next frame with some vertical pieces, and it kind of gives it cool separation. But I don't know, let me know what you think, guys, of the roof. I think, again, my favorite roof is definitely the one from the second island, and this one's not bad, but I think you could have made a little bit more to it if you want to. In my case, I think at the time I did like it, but you know, as always, when you kind of come back and review some of these builds, you're like, yeah, you see some details that you may want to change. And that pretty much covers all of our Gear Island builds, guys. I really do like the way that these turned out, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Which one was your favorite island, and what was your favorite feature? All right, folks, so there you go. There are all of the details, techniques, and materials that you're going to need to make a build, well, similar to this one. All you really need is some time and some patience, but as you can see, guys, all the stuff I used was fairly simple. The design elements are really up to you. But you'll also see that we had some features that were really interesting and intricate, like the roof on that second island, and each island itself is actually designed in a slightly different way, but we only really used 4 or 5 materials to do them. So don't get discouraged if you can't make something identical. It's not the point. I hope that this inspires you instead to make something that's creative and maybe a little bit of a step up from what you might make normally. Also, let me know what feature you liked the most. Like, was it the roof on Island 2? Was it the crane on Island 3? Or was it just the design of the islands themselves? Because I'm really curious. Like I said, I want to hear your guys' opinion on what you thought worked and what didn't, because this is a build that I'm hoping, like I said, inspires you on your next building adventure. And with that, we're done. So thank you so much for watching until the end of this video. As always, guys, feel free to check out some of the other content on the channel. We have a ton of speed builds. We even have some YouTube shorts going up. So there's a lot of cool Terraria related material that you can go check out. And I do appreciate you doing so. So with that said, guys, as always, thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. We will see you in the next one.